You know, for years, this guy was one of the most powerful men in Cambodia. I mean, seemingly untouchable. And then, just like that, his entire empire came crashing down. So today, we're going to break down the absolutely wild story of this cyber scammer kingpin.
So this is Chen Zhi. And look, by his late 30s, he had built this incredible public profile. He becomes a naturalized Cambodian citizen, gets appointed as an advisor to the prime minister. He even gets this prestigious title, O Kenya, which is basically like being called a lord. And his company, the Prince Group, it was a massive conglomerate. We're talking real estate, banking, the whole shebang.
And then, this happened. In January, Chinese state television drops these images. And there he is, Chen Zhi, hooded, in handcuffs, being walked off a plane by police. The guy who was supposed to be untouchable was caught.
So what happened? Right? That's the big question. How does a man with that much power, that much political protection, suddenly end up on a plane to China in handcuffs?
All right, let's get into it. To really understand how he fell, you first have to see just how huge his operation was, and really, just how protected he seemed to be. This right here really shows you the two faces of Chen Zhi's empire. On one side, you've got the public facade, right? The legitimate businessman, chairman of the Prince Group, looking like a pillar of the Cambodian economy. But then, you look at what the U.S. Department of Justice says was really going on, and that's the criminal reality. A guy allegedly running huge scam syndicates with at least 10 forced labor camps where people were forced to commit cyber fraud. And the human cost, it's just staggering. I mean, the United Nations thinks that in Cambodia alone, at least 100,000 people have been forced into these scam operations. These are people who are often trafficked, held against their will, and forced to steal the life savings of victims all over the world.
And the money? It's just as mind-boggling. The U.S. Treasury says these syndicates based out of Southeast Asia stole $10 billion. And that's just from American victims in just 1 year. This is not some small-time thing. This is a massive global criminal enterprise.
And for the longest time, Chen Zhi seemed totally insulated from all of this. I mean, when the US and the UK hit his company with sanctions last October, the Cambodian government basically just gave a diplomatic shrug. Their official response was pretty much, well, we hope you have enough evidence. He really truly seemed untouchable.
So, if he was so protected, what gave? What changed? Well, it seems like while Cambodia was willing to look the other way, the rest of the world was really starting to lose its patience.
And you can see just how fast the walls started closing in on this timeline. In October, boom, the U.S. unseals its indictment. The same month, South Korea is publicly demanding that its citizens be rescued. Then by December, you've got Thailand launching bombing raids on these scam bases. All of a sudden, Cambodia is feeling the heat from all sides. But the final nail in the coffin, that came from somewhere else entirely.
Yeah, the final move didn't come from the West. It came from Cambodia's biggest, most powerful ally, China. And this, my friends, is where we get to the real reason he was taken down. This is the million-dollar question, right? Why did China want him so badly? And why now? I mean, Chinese authorities have been looking into his group since 2020. They even called it a mega cross-border criminal group. But for years, nothing happened. He was still free. So, what was the sudden urgency?
Well, according to experts like Jason Tower, the answer is all about geopolitics. See, that U.S. indictment, it completely changed the game. Because suddenly, there was a very real chance that Chen Zhi could be arrested and shipped off to the United States.
And here's why Beijing absolutely could not let that happen. That U.S. indictment was public, and it had some seriously explosive claims. It alleged that Chen Zhi's people were talking to officials inside China's own Ministry of Public Security to make legal threats disappear. It even claimed they used a Chinese law enforcement officer to extort other businesses. Can you imagine a public trial in an American courtroom where all of this might come out? It would have been a huge, huge geopolitical embarrassment for Beijing. So Cambodia was stuck in the middle and had a choice to make. But let's be real. When a country depends on another one as much as Cambodia depends on China, we're talking largest investor, weapons supplier, infrastructure funder, that choice is kind of made for you. They were always going to side with their main backer.
Okay, so one of the biggest players is gone. Does that mean this whole problem with these massive scam compounds is finally over? Well, let's just say the experts are not holding their breath.
The general feeling among experts, like Jacob Sims from Harvard, is that this was probably a one-off. Chen Zhi's fall happened because of that very specific threat of him ending up in a U.S. court. It doesn't mean there's suddenly a big crackdown coming for all the other kingpins out there.
A lot of people think this was just a calculated move to get the international pressure off their backs for a bit, because the basic problem hasn't gone away. We're still talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry that's woven into the economy of the region. And the big fear is that these criminal groups are like water, you know? You dam them up in one spot, and they just find a new path, flowing into new areas with less oversight, to start all over again. And that leaves us with one last, pretty unsettling question. Sure, taking down one kingpin is a big deal. But in a global industry this huge, this profitable, and this resilient, you have to wonder who's already stepping up to take his place.